Today for Maddi and Tani's Surviving and Thriving channel, we have a very special interview with a friend and physical therapist of mine, Farris, who is also a published author now. So we're excited to hear about your book, your journey with writing it, and with
congrats.
therapy.
And excited to hear someone who's worked with Maddi, so a fun, different perspective we haven't got to have.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun to chat about obviously the book, but I love what you guys are doing too. So I'm just so excited to be here and chat with you guys, and hopefully we can get into some really cool topics and talk a little bit more about both of our books.
And may I just say, I appreciate you being the guinea pig of our operation. Multi-platform streaming thing, which you're like very new to, but we're going live off of our new Facebook profile we made, which is exciting. And once we figure it out, we'll have it hooked up to other platforms too. So, try and get as many people to see it as possible.
Perfect.
Catch the replay, be able to share it. In fact, I was like, I should share it on.
I never even heard of this live studio, whatever you guys are using. It's great.
This guy we interviewed last week was actually the one who suggested it to us. He messaged us and was like, I just started, because he has a podcast too. And he was like, he started using this thing called Restream. And it's cool because it like consolidates all of the various social media platforms and you can like stream off of all of them at the same time.
Interesting.
Like, cool. So we're trying it for the first time right now. But here we are.
And I was just happy that you were ready. I mean, I figured, you already knew when you tell your story and you tell everything, that it's going to be up there forever. But I was like, hey, is he okay with going live? So thank you for being okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Anyways, I wish we had a copy of your book to show us.
I know. I have, like I told you guys a couple of minutes ago, I haven't even seen it yet. So people who have not pre-ordered are obviously ordering it through Amazon since I published and are getting it. So people have like posted a couple pictures. It's pretty crazy. It's just so surreal and doesn't really
a bit about your book, what it's called.
I haven't even seen the book yet.
What it's about.
Yeah. So the book is called The Happiness Perspective: Learning to Reframe Our Physical Trauma into Hope, Happiness, and Connection. I guess I can just dive into like a little bit of intro of sort of who I am and how we sort of know each other a little bit, Maddi. So I'm a physical therapist. I work in a rehab hospital and I treat individuals it's all neuro rehab. So I treat individuals who have had strokes, brain injuries, anything really affecting the brain and spinal cord. And I've been working 8 years, and over the course of my career, it was honestly just a lot for me to handle emotionally, see what I was seeing on a daily basis. It got to me early in my career. So I started journaling and writing things down and just getting things out of my head just because it helped me. And then I started a blog, and it sort of just fed into it was very cathartic for me to get things out of my head. Fast forward 7 years into my career, I met you, and you were telling me about, Maddi, like your journey about your book and sort of how it came to be and the process you went through, and you sort of pushed me to do it. And I never thought in a million years I would be able to write a book. So that was really the genesis in me starting my journey writing my book, which I started about a year ago, and I just published the first week of December. And I already mentioned the name of the book, The Happiness Perspective, but it's really about common threads and common things that I've seen in my patients to help them unlock their happiness in recovery. And I highlight 4 things. I think they transcend physical rehab, physical therapy, and are applicable to our daily struggles that we all go through. So that's really the overview of the book and sort of how it all came to be.
So what are these 4 pillars?
Yeah, so the first one, I'll just sort of go through them and I'll give a little explanation of each. So the first one is turning apathy into altruism. The second one are these 4 pillars. You guys can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So the first one is apathy into altruism. The second one is grief into gratitude, turning grief into gratitude. The third one is process versus product. So those are the first 3. And then the last one is being able to have moments of weakness, but not letting it turn into like a mindset of weakness where you're stuck in that sort of mindset. So it's okay to have bad days, but not letting it fester into sort of a constant state where you're trying to sort of get out of. It's okay to have the moments, but not letting it fester into like a mindset of weakness. So those are the 4 things I unpack in the book. And then I also go into like 3 things specifically that my patients have taught me. And those 3 things are the power of human connection, and how like my interactions with my patients have pretty significant the day-to-day interactions I have with my patients, just how impactful that can be. And it could be little tiny things, simple conversations that I have with them, and things that we take for granted. I feel like just being able to connect with people. Small acts of kindness is the second thing. Go the biggest way, the longest way. And then the third thing is just this concept of aiming higher. I went to a lecture she's an author now, but she lost her leg when she was young. And she was talking about her experiences. And one of the parents of a young girl asked her, do you wish you were normal? And her response was, normal is overrated, aim higher. So
I like that.
Yeah, the whole chapter is all about this concept of normal, and how I think society leads us to believe that normal is like this perfect thing that we should all be striving for, but everyone's different. And I just talk a little bit about that. And of course, it's tied in relation to like physical rehab and trauma and things like that.
And what even is normal?
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's different for everyone, and you just have to be true to who you are. And it's not easy to sort of to do that, especially with social media being what it is today. But I just talk a little bit about that in the book too.
I'm glad you touch on that, because that's something me and Maddi talk about a lot.
We talk about that a lot, and it's still something that I need a lot of help with too.
It's hard.
We need help. Being normal.
It's a process.
Yes. So speaking of happiness, how happy are you that your book is published now?
I am pretty happy. It's crazy. It doesn't feel real because I haven't even seen the book, which is kind of crazy. I should be getting it this week. I can't wait. And I don't even feel like it's here because I haven't seen it. But I'm very excited, and it's something I never thought in a million years that I would be able to do. I love reading, and I never thought as myself a writer or someone who can actually write a book. So I'm pretty happy about it.
How was the whole process for you, going through the process of, organizing all your thoughts, writing the words, editing? How did that all go for you?
It changed a lot during the process. And when I first started and wanted to write the book, it was really going to be all about how just certain lessons I learned from my patients. But after a couple phone calls with Eric, who was sort of the person who the program I went through this book writing. Yes, your professor. So that was really the first thing I wanted to write about. But after my initial positioning call with him, we just fleshed things out a little bit, and then it pivoted a few times. And honestly, COVID, when it hit, it just gave me the time to actually sit down and do this over the past year. And it's a little bit of a blessing. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but I think
I'm glad you say that.
Yeah, I think
I'm like, there are some good things that have come out of this year.
There are good things that have come out of this.
Yeah, and it sucks. I mean, obviously everything, people, the lives we've lost and all that. And it's just all the changes that have gone on, not only for us, like personally, but on a world level, on a macro level. It's just crazy. But I've had the time, and I think a big part of my experience with my patients too is like how we frame what we're going through will dictate sort of how we view what we're going through too. So it was kind of a blessing to have that time, because work is so busy, of course. So it was a little bit of a blessing, but I was able to really focus on the book and put a lot of time and energy. And at the end of when I finished the process, I'm happy with the final product, because I was able to put a lot of time into it. And I was able to have all that time because of COVID. Part of it was because of COVID. So
yeah, no, it's like that was the best time that you possibly could have embarked on the journey.
Absolutely.
good use of the extra time you have. I'm curious to hear a little bit about just like the evolution. Like you mentioned how you had an original idea and it changed a lot. Like, can you talk a bit about how that your book journey evolved and how it changed?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it was really just going to be about the lessons I learned from my patients. And then so the book is broken up into 3 parts. And the third part, like I talk about the 3 lessons from my patients that I talked about, that I mentioned earlier. And I think the reflection was a big part of this process for me, like looking back over my career, 8 years, like being able to sort of dissect and look at those past experiences, certain common threads that my patients experienced as they went through their recovery. I was able to sort of pick those things, and it wasn't like I started chapter 1 and it was a completely fluid process and I finished with chapter 12. I was just honestly, whenever a thought would come to my head, I would write things down and then I pieced it all together. And then once I sort of got my structure with all the chapters, I was able to sort of piece all those little thoughts I had, whether it was like a 500 word, little story, or it was really storytelling and just writing stories. So I was able to sort of write things down. And then after the fact, once I had a sort of a structure, I was able to plug those things into the structure that I was able to have. So I don't consider myself to be very artistic. And it was a little bit of I feel like even within the structure that I had, I was able to be a little bit of, flesh out my artistic side a little bit. So it was really fun and the process was fun. And like I said, I just can't believe that I finally published a book.
Yeah, it'll be crazy when you finally get to see it for the first time, your book.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the book. And I think it's really awesome that you took from like all your experiences of listening from other people and kind of that's how you came up with all the pillars. So it's really interesting, at least from someone on the other side, because I know when we start talking to people, what kind of things seem to kind of bring us all together. But it's really cool to see that you working with all these different people, what kind of things really are important. Like I would really like to learn to read that book because I feel like I'm just all over the place and need the kind of structure to reel it in.
Yeah, and I love what you guys are doing, and that's one of the things I talk about is like one of the pillars is like turning apathy into altruism, and it almost sounds counterintuitive when I first meet my patients. I mean, Maddi, you can sort of speak to this. I met you in outpatient, so you were a little bit further along in your recovery, and I wasn't even your first outpatient.
No, PT.
Right. I wasn't even your first outpatient PT. So I met you a little further along in your recovery process. But just thinking about altruism and helping other people, it's almost sounds counterintuitive when you first have your injury, whether it's a stroke or a brain injury, or a spinal cord injury. And then most of my patients are pretty checked out. They're very depressed. They're going through obviously life-changing injuries, and they don't really feel like they have something to live for oftentimes. And they just feel like they're a burden for their family, their loved ones. But as soon as they're able to turn that apathy into altruism and sort of help other people, I find my patients start to unlock their happiness. And that's something you guys do an amazing job of. And obviously I've been following you guys, just helping other people, having this community to talk about, your experiences. And I think it holds more water. I don't know what it's like to have had a stroke or a spinal cord injury or brain injury. I'm just going based off of my experiences with my patients. So I think when you hear it from someone who has gone through something, already, it holds a little bit more water. And I think what you guys are doing is amazing. And it speaks to that altruistic, behavior that I think is so important in recovery and unlocking someone's happiness.
Well, thank you. When you were saying that, though, it made me think, like, as a patient, as a person who has had a stroke and, brain, whatever you want to call it, I do find it to be very hard, especially like in that initial phase, kind of like what you were talking about, Farris, about how it's hard to turn that apathy into altruism. Like there's definitely a stage of like grief. And then it's like, what is that point when things kind of flip, when like the switch flips and then